He drove a beat-up pickup truck, ate breakfast at cheap diners, wore the same simple clothes every day, and became the richest person in America. This is not a story about luck. This is not a story about privilege. This is the story of a man who walked into forgotten towns, towns no one cared about, and built an empire that changed how millions of people live. His name was Daniel Prescott, and by the time you finish this story, you'll understand why one man with nothing but a dream and a refusal to quit became more powerful than the kings of Wall Street. You'll learn how he built the biggest retail empire the world has ever seen. With more than 10,000 stores, over 2 million employees, and hundreds of millions of customers every single week. But more than that, you'll improve your English while hearing one of the most emotional, powerful, and unforgettable success stories ever told. This is real vocabulary, real storytelling, real motivation, all in simple, clear, powerful English. So pay full attention, because what you're about to hear will change how you think about success forever. Before there were billions of dollars, before the world knew his name, there was just a boy, Daniel Moore Prescott, born on March 29, 1918, in Kingfisher, Oklahoma. A place so small most maps didn't even highlight it. His parents weren't rich. In fact, his family struggled during the Great Depression when millions of Americans lost their jobs, homes, and savings. His father, Marcus Prescott, was a farm loan appraiser, a job that made them move constantly. His mother, Eleanor, was a warm, strong woman who believed deeply in education and hard work. Daniel had one younger brother, Ethan Prescott, and together the two boys grew up in a world where nothing was guaranteed. They didn't have luxuries, but what they did have was character, built by doing chores, selling milk from the family cow, and waking up before sunrise to help out. As a child, Daniel hated wasting time. He worked paper routes before school. He milked cows before sunrise. He joined the Boy Scouts and became the youngest Eagle Scout in his state. From the beginning, he wanted to do more than survive. He wanted to win, not for glory, but for purpose. Daniel Prescott wasn't a genius. He wasn't born with money or power, but he had two gifts. One, a deep hunger to learn. Two, a deep love for people. In high school, he played football, basketball, and baseball, not because he was the best, but because he never gave up. He was the kind of person who would stay late, practice longer, and give 110% every single time. Even if he failed, he tried again. After high school, he couldn't afford a fancy college, but he was determined. He took a loan and went to the University of Missouri, studying economics. He worked odd jobs to pay his fees, waiting tables, cleaning, managing his time with military-style discipline. At 22 years old, he graduated, but the world was at war. World War II had begun, and like many young men, Daniel joined the Army Intelligence Corps, where he served with honor. It was during this time, not in a business school, not in an office, but during war, that Daniel learned his most powerful lesson. Details matter. People matter. You must think like a soldier, but serve like a human being. After the war ended, Daniel married Grace Robinson, a smart, confident, no-nonsense woman from a well-off family in Oklahoma. Grace wasn't just a housewife. She was the backbone of Daniel's journey. She challenged him, she supported him, and she made one thing clear. We will not waste our lives. We will build something big or die trying. With $5,000 from his savings and a $20,000 loan from his father-in-law, Daniel bought a small Ben Franklin variety store in Newport, Arkansas. He was just 26 years old. No business experience, no big investors, just a dream to serve customers better than anyone else ever had. He worked every single day from opening to closing, checking every price tag, talking to every customer, cleaning the floors himself, and studying the competition like a detective. Daniel didn't just want to sell things. He wanted to understand people. He would drive for hours to visit rival stores and take notes on everything. Layout, pricing, customer behavior. He wasn't afraid to learn from others, even his competitors. While most store owners raised prices to earn more profit, Daniel did the opposite. He lowered prices to earn the customer's trust. People thought he was crazy. "Why are you cutting your own profit?" they asked. But Daniel knew something they didn't. If you give people a good deal, they come back and they bring their friends. And that is the beginning of a revolution. Just as things were going great, Daniel's store was becoming popular, making more money than anyone in town. But there was a problem. He didn't own the building. He had only signed a 5-year lease. When those 5 years ended, the landlord refused to renew the lease and took the store away from Daniel. Why? Because the landlord saw how profitable Daniel's ideas were and wanted to give the business to his own son. Daniel lost everything. The location, the brand, the customer base, all the hard work, gone. He could have given up. He could have complained, cried, or quit, but he didn't. He took a deep breath, packed up his life, and moved to a small town called Bentonville, Arkansas. There, with a burning heart and nothing but his brain and his wife, he opened a new store. That store would later become the first Prescott Supermart. It was 1950. Bentonville wasn't a place for billionaires. It wasn't a big city with big investors. It was a quiet little town with one main street, a few farmers, a few teachers, and a lot of dreams. But for Daniel Prescott, Bentonville was the blank canvas he needed. He rented a small building and opened a store called Prescott's 5 and 10. It wasn't flashy. There was no giant signboard, no grand opening, just Daniel, his wife, and a store full of small products: socks, school supplies, cleaning items, candy, and toys. But there was one thing that made this store different. Not the location, not the prices, not even the size. It was Daniel's obsession with people. From day one, Daniel had a system in his mind. He didn't call it a system, but it became the foundation of Prescott's Supermart's success. 1. Serve the customer like their family. He didn't just say hello. He would walk customers to the shelf. He would carry their bags. He would ask them what they didn't like and fix it. He believed the customer is not just the reason for our success. The customer is our success. 2. Buy cheap, sell cheaper, make it up in volume. This was radical. Most stores wanted to make big profit on each item. Daniel wanted to make small profit on many items. Instead of selling 100 shirts with $5 profit each, he would sell 10,000 shirts with 50 cents profit each. He once said, "If we lower prices by 1 cent and sell 1 million units, that's $10,000 saved by our customers." They will never forget that. 3. Never stop learning from others. Daniel would visit other stores every weekend. He would take notebooks and write down ideas, designs, product placements. He never acted like he knew everything. He believed that stealing ideas ethically and doing them better was not weakness. It was wisdom. Here's what made him different from every other businessman. Even after opening stores, Daniel would drive 100 to 200 miles on weekends to visit competitor stores, walk inside like a regular shopper, observe the aisles, the prices, the customer service, take handwritten notes, sometimes 10 pages a day, then come back and apply those ideas immediately. He didn't sit in an office. He lived on the ground inside his stores among real people. He called it retail education, not in a university, but in real life. By the late 1950s, Daniel had several small stores and they were doing well. But something bothered him. He realized that most rural towns in America were ignored by big retailers. Large chains only went to big cities. Small towns had high prices, poor selection, and limited service. Daniel saw the gap in the opportunity. He thought, what if we build a large store in a small town with low prices, high variety, and great service? Wouldn't people drive from miles away? It was a risky idea. Investors laughed. Big businessmen said, that'll never work. Rural people don't buy much. But Daniel didn't listen. He had seen enough. He knew that rural America was hungry for value and no one was serving them right. He gathered courage. He convinced his wife. He borrowed money. And in 1962, Daniel Prescott opened the first-ever Prescott's Supermart Discount City in Rogers, Arkansas. The store was 15,000 square feet, big for that time, but nothing compared to today's standards. No automatic doors, no digital screens, no big promotions, just shelves filled with discounted products from clothes to electronics to groceries. Everything cheaper than the competitors. People were curious. Some laughed. Some said, this will never survive. But then they stepped inside. They saw the prices. They saw the variety. They saw the honesty in the store. And they came back, not just once, but every week with their families, with their neighbors, with their whole towns. Sales started rising. Word of mouth exploded. Customers were no longer just customers. They became fans. Daniel didn't build Prescott's Supermart alone. His wife, Grace, was involved in every major decision. His brother, Ethan, joined the business, and soon his kids started helping out. This was not a corporate empire built by suits and glass towers. It was a family business built on trust, effort, and simplicity. Daniel believed in employee ownership. He gave his store managers part ownership. If they helped the store grow, they made more money. This made everyone think like owners, not just workers. By the end of the 1960s, Prescott's Supermart had expanded to 18 stores. That's not just fast growth, it's explosive. But more important than the number of stores was the way they were run. Each store followed Daniel's rules. Lower prices than anyone in town. Friendly staff who actually cared. Clean aisles and organized shelves. Managers who were trained like leaders. And a community feeling. People didn't feel like customers. They felt like family. Daniel made sure every new store was within driving distance of his home so he could personally visit, inspect, and improve them. He was not building a business. He was building a movement. While others chased fancy offices and magazine covers, Daniel Prescott stayed focused on three things. 1. Drive a used truck, not a luxury car. He wanted his employees to know he was one of them. 2. Focus on saving pennies, not spending dollars. He would travel in economy class, share hotel rooms, and reuse office supplies. 3. Keep learning like a beginner. He read reports, visited stores, and talked to the janitor with the same respect as a vice president. He often said, "The moment you think you're too big to learn is the moment you start shrinking." By the early 1970s, Prescott's Supermart wasn't just a clever idea anymore. It wasn't just one man's personal dream. It had become a growing machine of value, a quiet rebellion against overpriced goods, poor service, and old-fashioned retail. And the machine was getting smarter, faster, and more dangerous for every competitor. Prescott's Supermart had already expanded to 18 stores, but Daniel Prescott wasn't satisfied. He didn't wake up every day thinking, "How many stores can we open?" Instead, he asked, "How can we open stores faster, better, and smarter than anyone else in history?" He wasn't thinking like a shopkeeper anymore. He was thinking like an architect of a nationwide revolution. Most businessmen grow one store, then 2, then 10. Daniel Prescott grew one store, then started building systems. He understood something others didn't. If you want to grow fast, you can't just copy-paste stores. You must build the machine that makes stores. So while the world was focused on flashy branding and expansion, Daniel focused on logistics, distribution, and information systems. Because if you want to serve millions, you must master how to get goods fast, how to keep prices low, how to know exactly what the customer wants. This mindset gave birth to a new kind of company, not just a retailer, but a retail engine. In 1970, Prescott's Supermart made a decision that shocked other businesses. Instead of relying on third-party distributors like most retailers did, Daniel Prescott decided to build his own supply chain. That meant Prescott's Supermart trucks, Prescott's Supermart warehouses, Prescott's Supermart drivers, Prescott's Supermart control. Why? Because outside companies didn't care about Prescott's Supermart's mission. They delivered slow. They charged more. They didn't listen. So Daniel said, if we want to control our prices, we must first control our products. In 1971, Prescott's Supermart built its first distribution center in Bentonville, Arkansas. This center wasn't just a storage building. It was a command center where products from all over the country were received, sorted, and shipped directly to stores with military-level efficiency. Every product came in, every product went out. No delay, no middleman. And because it was Prescott's Supermart owned, costs were lower, speed was faster, and accuracy was near perfect. Over time, Prescott's Supermart built more of these hubs, a powerful spider web of warehouses, and roads connecting small towns to big savings in record time. No one had ever done this at such scale for discount retail. Most people don't know this, but Prescott's Supermart was one of the first retail companies in America to use satellite communication. In the late 1970s, when even big banks didn't use computers for real-time data, Prescott's Supermart installed satellite dishes on the rooftops of their stores and warehouses. These satellites connected every store to Prescott's Supermart's headquarters. What did this mean? It meant that every time a product was sold in a store in Texas, the head office in Arkansas knew immediately and could restock or adjust prices in real time. This was decades ahead of the competition. It turned Prescott's Supermart from a chain of stores into a living, breathing network. And it gave Daniel the power to control cost, supply, and pricing like no one else. "Retail is detail," he said, "and we will know every detail every single hour." In 1972, Prescott's Supermart had around 50 stores. That's when Daniel Prescott made another bold move. He took Prescott's Supermart public. That means he sold shares of the company on the stock market. Why? Not to get rich, not to retire, but to raise money to expand faster. This move brought in millions of dollars, which Daniel used to build more warehouses, buy more land for future stores, improve technology, hire better managers, train employees better. The company's stock price kept rising, but Daniel didn't buy luxury cars or gold watches. He drove his beat-up Ford pickup. He ate breakfast at cheap diners. And he wore the same simple clothes, because Prescott's Supermart's money belonged to the mission. Another innovation came in the late 1970s and early 1980s. Daniel noticed that people hated driving from grocery store to pharmacy to clothing shop to hardware store. He thought, what if we put everything under one roof? Not just clothes, not just electronics, but food, pharmacy, garden tools, toys, everything. That's when Prescott's Supermart launched supercenters. These were massive stores where a mother could fill her car with fuel, buy diapers for her baby, grab fresh vegetables, pick up a birthday gift, get her medicine, buy clothes for her kids, and be home before dinner. This became Prescott's Supermart's signature style. Low prices plus maximum convenience. And it worked like wildfire. People stopped shopping at 5 stores, they just went to Prescott's Supermart. Daniel Prescott knew one truth. Happy employees make happy customers. But instead of calling them employees, he called them associates, and he treated them like co-owners. He created an employee stock purchase program which allowed even he janitor to buy shares in Prescott's Supermart. He visited stores unannounced, talked to cashiers, asked about their kids, and listened. He believed that ideas didn't come from boardrooms. They came from the shelf stocker who sees what's missing, the cashier who hears customer complaints, the store manager who watches people every day. This created a bottom-up culture where everyone felt responsible for the company's success. By the mid-1980s, Prescott's Supermart had grown to hundreds of stores, billions in revenue, and thousands of employees. Daniel Prescott was named Retailer of the Year, one of America's richest men, a business icon across the globe. But he still refused luxury. He still lived in the same modest house in Bentonville. He still wore a baseball cap and stood in checkout lines. And most of all, he still believed in serving people first. By the mid-1980s, Prescott's Supermart was a force no one could ignore anymore. Daniel Prescott's humble dream had become a retail hurricane, sweeping across small towns, shaking up old systems, and rewriting every rule of business. But with great size comes great resistance, and with great power comes the target. Prescott's Supermart had now crossed $8.4 billion in annual sales by 1984. That's $8,400 million per year, from a single 5 and 10 store in Bentonville to over 800 stores across multiple states. Yet even as the numbers soared, the pressure grew. Success creates fans, but it also creates enemies. And Prescott's Supermart was now being watched not just by customers, but by the media, unions, small business owners, city planners, academics, even politicians.